when someone tells me they're an atheist, I'm always like, I want to hear more about like why do you think that way? Yeah, I don't know. I just find it interesting
Yeah.
because I remember for some reason, you know, when you just have really random memories stay in your head from like
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah.
Remember one religion lesson that stuck in my head was like I was in like religion freshman year of high school, and we were going over St. Thomas Aquinas's five proofs. But so he wrote these five proofs of like trying to prove to people that God existed.
Okay.
And one of them that always stuck with me was something cannot come from nothing. It just is impossible.
Then what created God? If a god or gods exist in reality, that is, they definitely exist outside of your imagination, then it would have to qualify as a something. Yes? So, going by the logic that convinced your still developing teenage brain, this something could not come from nothing, which means a god would need to have been created from something else. So, what created God? Or what was God created from? Also, you cited Thomas Aquinas, Catholic saint, and he famously asserted that God creates ex nihilo, which means from nothing. So, magic? Now, if you're considering responding to the question of what created God with something like God doesn't need a creator because it's God, then you will be employing a logical fallacy known as special pleading. That means you've dictated a rule that, according to you, applies to everything else except for this one unjustified double standard, merely because without it, your entire narrative falls apart. Or if you say that a God does exist, but somehow exists outside of the bounds of detectable reality, then the question becomes, what's the difference between a God and nothing? If something exists in reality, then it has to be detectable in some way. It has to be measurable in some capacity to verify that it's, you know, real. But if that's impossible in this case, and not merely due to the limitations of our current technology, if by its very nature a God could never be demonstrably confirmed because it is somehow beyond measurement and testability, if it exists beyond our physical laws of energy, matter, the universe, space time, and can only be verified through personal experiences or odd coincidences or hypothetical thought experiments or telepathy, apparently. If it has absolutely none of the properties that are required to exist in reality, then it has the properties of nothing. You repeated the boring chestnut that atheists believe that something can come from nothing, but you believe that nothing is a something.